Any Orla began to chant, her voice low and melodic, as if calling to spirits beyond the veil. The air in the hut grew heavy, charged with an energy that made Kunle's skin crawl. The walls seemed to pulse with life, shadows dancing in ways that defied logic. "Close your eyes," Any Orla instructed. Kunle and Ireti obeyed. And then the pain began. Her white, cloudy eyes stared blankly into the space where Kunle sat on a simple wooden stool. The room smelled faintly of herbs and clay, with a burning lantern casting flickering shadows on the mud walls. There was no sound except for the faint chirping of crickets outside. "Tell me," Any Orla began. "Why did you come?" Kunle swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ireti, she cursed me." Any Orla tilted her head slightly. "That curse did not come out of nowhere. You earned it, Kunle." "I know," Kunle broke down, gripping his face with trembling hands. "I was selfish. I hurt her. I played with her heart. But this curse, this suffering. I can't live like this anymore. Helpless. Humiliated. Unwanted," Any Orla said softly, her voice firm but not unkind. Each word hit Kunle like a slap. "That is how you made her feel. Ireti gave her heart to you, but you treated it like it was nothing. Did you think she wouldn't fight back? Were you not the one boasting to your friends about your body count? Why did you stop counting? Or has your phallus stopped being a calculator?" Kunle was silent. He couldn't bring himself to defend his actions. He knew the truth. He had taken Ireti's love for granted, thinking she, like so many others, would move on and forgive him. But Ireti was different. Her pain birthed vengeance, and her vengeance birthed a curse strong enough to cripple any man. "Please," Kunle begged after a long pause. "I know I was wrong. I'll do anything to make things right. Anything." Any Orla sighed. Her gentle demeanor made her feel almost otherworldly, as though she existed in a realm that Kunle could not reach. Slowly, she lifted her hands to the plain scarf wrapped around her head. "Do you know why I am blind?" she asked, her voice filled with a weight that made Kunle's chest tighten. He shook his head instinctively, then realized she could not see him. "And no." And so, Any Orla began her story, a story that made Kunle's blood run cold. Years ago, Any Orla and Ireti were just young girls growing up in the same village. Their father was a powerful witch doctor, known for his dark magic and ruthless nature. He feared nothing except death. When he fell ill at the age of 50, he sought a way to prolong his life. His solution was horrifying. The witch doctor gathered his 2 daughters in front of him one night. The air was heavy with incense and the taste of bitter herbs on their tongues as he spoke. "One of you," he hissed, "must give me your eyes." The girls froze in confusion and terror, staring at their father as though he had gone mad. "What do you mean, Baba?" Ireti asked, her voice trembling. "I mean exactly what I said," the witch doctor snapped. "You are young. Your lives and beauty mean little compared to my life and power. One of you must sacrifice your eyes so that I may live another 20 years. One eye for 10 years, he explained. "You are my blood," he continued, his voice cold and commanding. "And only blood can save me." Ireti, beautiful, proud, and fiery, had stared at him in disbelief. She had dreams of a life far beyond the village, of love, of adventure. How could she give up her sight? "No," she said firmly, her voice sharp as a blade. "You have lived your life. Papa, you cannot ask me to destroy mine." Her father's anger was a storm, his curses thunderous. "You will regret this, Ireti. If you won't give your eyes for me, then you will never know love. No man will ever want you. You will stay alone and forgotten until you die." Ireti ran from him, tears streaming down her face, but she did not turn back. Her dreams were too strong to be sacrificed for his selfishness. But Any Orla, kind, quiet, and selfless Any Orla, had done what Ireti would not. She didn't flinch, didn't ask for anything in return. She gave up both her eyes to save their father. And for 20 more years, their father lived. Any Orla, now blind, never once blamed her sister, not even when Ireti left the village to chase a life of her own. Now, in the present, Kunle reached that very same hut. It looked worn with age, the roof sagging under its own weight. Inside sat Any Orla, her unseeing eyes staring past him, but her presence felt sharp as though she could pierce into his soul. Kunle fell to his knees before her. Any Orla, he began, his voice breaking. I need your help. Any Orla tilted her head slightly, a soft smile on her lips. You are the one who broke my sister's heart. The one who laughed at her scars. Kunle flinched at her words, shame twisting in his stomach. She loved you, Any Orla continued, her voice gentle yet firm. Even when you made her feel like she didn't deserve love. And now, look at you. You feel what she felt, helpless, humiliated, unwanted. Kunle lowered his head, tears streaming down his face. I was a fool, Any Orla. I know that now. Please, help me. I'll do anything. Anything? Any Orla's smile faded as her face turned serious. Then give me one of your eyes. Kunle looked up sharply, his heart pounding. His eye? Fear gripped him. Could he really do it? Ireti had been silent the entire time, standing in the corner of the hut like a shadow. But now, she stepped forward, her face calm but her voice steady. If he wants to be free of the curse, she said, her voice cutting through the room, then let it be fair. He gives one eye, and I give one too. Kunle stared at her, stunned. He had never truly looked at her before. Not like this. Her face, once beautiful but scarred by a fire she barely escaped as a child, held a grace he hadn't noticed before. And now, here she was, willing to share his pain. Ireti, he whispered, his voice trembling. You would do this? I loved you, Kunle, she said simply, her eyes meeting his. I still do. Her words twisted his heart in a way he didn't expect. For the first time, Kunle felt something foreign, guilt. Real guilt, heavy and sharp like a knife in his chest. Any Orla sighed, her hands running over the carved wooden staff she always carried. Love is a strange thing, she said. It makes fools of us all. But if you are willing, we will proceed. Kunle hesitated. The thought of losing an eye terrified him. But the thought of living under this curse for the rest of his life was worse. He nodded, his jaw tight with resolve. I'll do it. Ireti stepped closer to Kunle and took his hand. Her touch was warm, steadying. Together, she said softly. What followed was not of this world. Any Orla began to chant, her voice low and melodic, as if calling to spirits beyond the veil. The air in the hut grew heavy, charged with an energy that made Kunle's skin crawl. The walls seemed to pulse with life, shadows dancing in ways that defied logic. Close your eyes, Any Orla instructed. Kunle and Ireti obeyed. And then the pain began. It was not a physical pain but something far deeper, like their very souls were being wrenched apart. Kunle felt something leave him, something vital and irreplaceable. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Through the searing agony, he felt Ireti's grip on his hand tighten. She was there, sharing his pain, and somehow that thought gave him strength. When it was over, they collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Kunle's hand instinctively went to his face. To his horror, he felt the empty socket where his left eye had been. But the curse, it was gone. He could feel it. Ireti touched her own face, now missing her right eye. Despite the pain, there was a peace in her expression. Any Orla smiled faintly, her unseeing eyes seeming to gaze at something only she could perceive. The curse is broken, she said. But remember, Kunle, redemption is not a single act. It is a path you must choose to walk every day. If you break my heart again, this time even men will go after you and your one eye. Kunle looked at Ireti, his chest tight with emotion. Ireti, he struggled to find the words. I don't deserve you. And I am so sorry. A heavy silence filled the room. Annie Orla watched quietly from a corner, her work done. Kunle's apology hung in the air like a fragile piece of glass, waiting to fall. Then, unexpectedly, Ireti laughed. It wasn't a joyful laugh. It was bitter and empty, like someone who had been hurt far too many times. But there was something else there, acceptance. Kunle, she said, shaking her head, you are blind in one eye, and I am blind in one eye. That means we are now perfect for each other. Kunle blinked, surprised, and then, without meaning to, he chuckled. It started small, but soon his chest shook with real laughter. He couldn't believe it. After everything, after all their sins, their hurt, their madness, they were alive. They were free. He looked at Ireti, really looked at her. For the first time, he didn't see her as a conquest or a game to win. He saw her as a woman, a person who had suffered just as much as he had. And in that moment, something deep inside him shifted. Perfect for each other, he murmured, repeating her words, a crooked smile on his face. For the first time in his life, Kunle thought, maybe, just maybe, he could be more than the selfish man he used to be. Years later, the sun shone brightly over a small but lively village. Children ran through the dusty streets, their laughter filling the air. Women sold vegetables by the roadside, their loud haggling voices blending into the background. Life moved on, as it always did. In the middle of the village square stood Kunle and Ireti. They were older now, wiser. Ireti held a small basket of fruits, her remaining eye sparkling in the sunlight. Kunle stood beside her, holding her hand. The years had been kind to them. Their story had become part of the village's folklore. People whispered about the man who had once been cursed by his own greed and the woman who had been strong enough to break the cycle. But to Kunle and Ireti, those were just old tales. They were simply two people who had found their way back to each other. As they stood there, smiling at each other, Annie Orla approached them. The young woman was the most important factor in breaking the curse and rightfully is the only one with two eyes. Both of eyes, once taken by sacrifice for love, fully restored by another sacrifice for love too. Kunle, Ireti. You two look happy, she said. Kunle grinned. Happier than I deserve. Annie Orla laughed. Maybe. But I think you've done enough to earn it. Just then, a figure emerged from the crowd. It was Guy, the infamous crossdresser who had once chased Kunle during his cursed days. She still carried herself with unmatched confidence and wit. Seeing Kunle, she smirked. Kunle, she called, sauntering over. So you're finally off the market? Shame. I was next in line. Kunle threw his head back and laughed. Guy, you never change. Why would I, she quipped, winking at Ireti. But tell me, how are those old eyes of yours holding up? Kunle shook his head, still laughing. Better than yours, I'm sure. Guy rolled her eyes and walked away with a playful wave, leaving the couple laughing. Kunle and Ireti walked back to their home, hand in hand. The light bathed them in gold, and for a moment, the world felt perfect. Kunle glanced at Ireti, his heart full. Ireti, he whispered, his voice soft. I came to you for a game, but I found something real. She smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. Let's just hope our kids don't inherit your foolishness. Kunle chuckled. Let's also hope our son doesn't meet sisters who'll take both of his eyes. Ireti burst into laughter, shaking her head. That would actually make sense. At least then, he'd only be seeing his partner. They laughed together, their voices carrying into the evening sky. And for once in their complicated, tangled lives, everything was as it should be.
Thank you for watching to the very end. Congratulations, you've unlocked your chance to win our prize. To enter, simply leave a comment below. 1. Start with the name of your favorite character from this story. 2. Tell us where you're watching from. 3. And share at least one lesson you've learned from this story. The comment with the most likes and replies by 4 p.m. GMT tomorrow will be our winner. Get commenting and good luck! I'll see you again on our next story. Until then, stay booky booky.